Welcome to the bold analysis. Mambo ni Matatu slogan was anchored on President's ambition, what was seen as President's ambition to crush people in different supply chains that are branded cartels. And just this evening, I've seen pro-government bloggers, or rather government bloggers, deployed to create twists and spins by saying, now turning the Mambo Matatu from the corruption war to bit of now save, invest, trying to create hard work, working together. They've been trying to save the image of the Mambo ni Matatu slogan. And it's actually trending in social media. Now, this statement came during about the altercation between Rai and William Ruto. And in order seen as fighting the sugar cartels, the president said that you either leave the country or himself, he will detain you, and underline the word himself, or you have an option of going to heaven. Remember, it was not taken lightly because it happened at a time when Rai had just been abducted. And so, I want us to look at the latest development because I analyzed here that the fight against corruption is just some insane Kenyan can oppose it. And it has to be very strategic. As we speak, a consortium of investors are growing wary of investing in different sectors of the economy because the president's handy input in what is seen as fighting corruption can still, or rather they are seeing him as direct interest vested in the areas. What can be understood as a fight against corruption to investors, the Kenyan space is becoming a bit wary, is becoming a bit thick, and very unpredictable. And I want to look at the issue about the sugar belt here for a minute. I think we need to put it to a context. And that is why I partly support what Ruto is doing. You will understand, simple understanding. The sugar belt machines, Zaia, Mumias, Moroni, Ndewa, and you can name them. The machines are silent, but the sugar is in the shelves. So what has always happened is that it's imported. Of course, what we produce cannot be enough to serve the national grid. But they import, then it is packaged, get into the shelves. Now, the consumer gets the product, but most investors in that space had bypassed the production aspect because if they were to go through the process of buying the maize, or not maize, their own production from the source, then their profit margins will be very unpredictable. Of course, everyone wants the shortcut. So the challenge in the sugar space has been on importation, and that's where now these barons come in. They import, and after importing, they package, and all these other companies are run under one person. Then they'll be in a position to create a monopoly market. So you'll realize that most people, farmers that were doing sugarcane farming, had even opted out of that farming because nowhere the machines are silent. So the mystery on how this is going to be done is something that really needs real input. We need to be very objective here. If William Ruto will chase the barons and then pump government money in the sugar subsector and allow for the process of production so that the farmers that have outstanding balances, they're sorted, Those who can also access loans, they find a way of accessing loans so that they go back to the farms. When they go to the farms, cane cutters will get jobs. The tractors will get jobs. The farmers will get, people who will be working in those farms are going to get jobs. So we will start up the Western Belt economy. And to that extent, I am very right. However, if the intention is to chase the Rai team and also just import the same way Rai is importing, then absolutely we are not helping the sugar industry. If you talk to the farmers, that's the long and short of the sugar belt issue. Now, this issue of Mambo de Matatu, the first option of getting to jail or detaining, it's not a prerogative of the president to decide that person is going to be jailed, or that person is going to heaven, or that maybe that person is leaving the country. And remember, there are many other investors here who are now feeling that it's some vested anger on them. They need to leave the space. Ladies and gentlemen, let us be warned. This is something that Kenya Kwanza will regret if it is not handled carefully. And I like using the coffee example. The moment Embu Governor Barire mentioned those they believed were cartels, the licenses were revoked. And after the operation licenses of those companies in the coffee supply chain were revoked, farmers stayed with the coffee. Nairobi auction house was closed, and even after it was opened, it could not even crush half of what it was crushing before. And the whole coffee supply chain is in total mess. Now, this is why I'm saying that even the president himself, even them, the president's team are also feeling they're trying to create a lot of twisted messaging. I saw it even saying we're also going after the judges. The judges that have been supporting, giving orders on corruption cases and not. Of course, corruption is a syndicate, is a full enterprise. It's not something that I agree with the president that corruption is an enterprise where someone knows that if I go to court X, I'm going to get favorable judgment. If I go to the X, I'm going to get this. Look at the whole thing even about right. Today, there is another development to that case that is also been asked to pay Sambutani Sugar Factory 500 million in damages in a case that has been lying in court for the last 15 years. Now, is it a coincidence that at the same time, and by then they bowed to the president's pressure and withdrew the cases? After withdrawing all the cases, there was some push and pull between the two brothers, Rai and the other one from Uganda. But it's also believed that that tussle ended by the president intervention and all those cases were withdrawn. And so, it is very clear that something is not going on right. If this will be can be understood as harassment, the government harassment on them, or threats, then it's not going to work well. And I'm saying the Kenya Kwanza team must be very wary on how this is going to be handled. Because if you're not careful, we're going to get ourselves into these three troubles. And it will not take long. The first trouble, without proper alternative of managing, we run the risk of collapsing serious sugar supply chain. We run the risk of collapsing it. How about if they decide then to hold? Even as we speak, of course the supply chain is already distorted because nowadays I think technically it's like we killed the wholesale business. People almost are buying from them directly to the wholesalers. The wholesalers are now the retailers. The supermarkets are actually now the retailers. And so, without proper alternative, if we just send people once without a proper alternative on how we're going to manage something that I managed, are we going to bail the farmers and make sure those machines in those companies are running? Are we going to? And if it is so, if these fellows bought these companies, and maybe the machines there, they are still the ones that maybe they were listed, they are them, and they have to carry those and leave, is government ready to pump money for own source production? And if it is import, have we laid legal framework for those imports that can also cushion the consumer from unscrupulous importers? Because one thing that's gonna look here is we may open it, of course we'll end monopoly, but within that transition from the Rai era to the new era, we'll end up in another mess. Number 2, when the president gives an exit, you live, die, you live, go to heaven, or when you put, that is an avenue that can be weaponized and abused by civil servants to harass investors. And it will not be, someone will now say, government is now sorting after cartels. And everyone in some serious operation might be branded as cartel, or rather profiled as cartel. And under that profiling as cartel, it's an avenue for people to extort money from investors. Before we know, we are likely to create a very unconducive environment. And that's why I mentioned that the Mambo ni Matatu issue was a big blunder. It's a good idea. You could still do Mambo ni Matatu, but when you publicize it, you find out it's something that can be abused. President is fighting cartel, so everyone in his own capacity is profiling everyone as a cartel and fighting. So with that, it cannot be. Lastly, president's direct input on some of these sectors can be understood as individual interests.